Uh, you please introduce yourself and then fire off, but I will let Wasim Khan make the opening statement, and then we'll start the Q&A. I will appreciate my television colleagues just to hold fires on the tickers, क्योंकि इधर आपने टिकर डालने शुरू किए and everyone will get restless and upset. So session खत्म होने दें, उसके बाद आप टेलीविजन के ऊपर अपने टिकर्स भी डाल दें और अपने beepers भी करने जो आप कर सकते हैं. So over to Wasim Khan, and we'll once Wasim has done his opening statement, हम एक-एक question सबसे ले लेंगे, and then probably if there is time we'll take another round of questions, but one question at a time, and please try to avoid repetition. If your question has already been asked, please do not repeat the question. Pass it on to your other colleague. Thank you. Over to Wasim Khan.
Thank you very much, Sami, and thank you everybody for joining us today for this call. I'd be hoping that it was better circumstances upon which we were having this conversation. But unfortunately, we've seen events over the last 48 hours. We felt as the PCB it was important that we had an opportunity to talk through some of the sequence of events that took place on the morning of the 17th, and then also perhaps provide some factual information about what actually then took place thereafter, and various reports that have been sort of circulating about what did or didn't happen after we were given the information. Firstly, at 3 a.m. On the day of the match on the 17th, on Friday morning, I received a call from the ESI head of security, Mr. Reg Dickerson, who is the security consultant for New Zealand, informing me that a report had landed on the government's desk of New Zealand through their government security agencies, stating that there was a threat on the New Zealand team, and that threat was direct and imminent on that particular day. I then arrived in Lahore later that morning. We met with Reg Dickerson just to get some more clarification. He stated that there is a setup called the Five Eyes Alliance, which some of you may be aware of, which is set up to share intelligence and security information. Reg Dickerson stated that that information had emanated from that circle, and it reached the Deputy Prime Minister's office of New Zealand, and that it was serious and it was something that we needed to try and address immediately. We then proceeded to meet with local security agencies and intelligence of Pakistan to try and ascertain whether we believed or they believed there was any threat. They made it very, very clear as far as they were concerned, and let's bearing in mind that it's one of the top intelligence agencies in the world, that there was absolutely nothing that they had picked up to suggest that there was any immediate threat on the New Zealand team. This sort of correspondence went on with the intelligence for a few hours. I then received a couple of phone calls from David White, the chief executive of the New Zealand Cricket Board, firstly to inform me that this report had emanated, and then secondly to inform me that, that the Prime Minister of New Zealand had directed the New Zealand squad and support staff to return back to New Zealand immediately. That there have been reports that report that was provided to the New Zealand government was shared with our intelligence services. I can categorically tell you right now that despite our requests during that period of time, it was deemed to be confidential information, which couldn't be shared with anybody, which was hugely disappointing for us, considering that this was now threatening the tour. And what we would ideally have liked to have done, even if that information had gone to our security agencies, for some intelligence to be shared and for us to mitigate any potential threats that they deemed could happen or was possible within that report, and try and deal with it collectively so that we could continue and keep the tour on. We have seen in the past in places like Bangladesh and other places where attacks have happened, but tours have continued based on security reports by security experts. As far as we're concerned, the security expert for New Zealand had maintained and continues to maintain that Pakistan is safe in terms of our security protocols that we have in place, both from a plan and a rollout perspective. And just to give you an example, the royal couple who visited Pakistan last year had exactly the same presidential security. There's three elements. One is the hotel itself, which was protected as a fortress for the players, as a safe and secure. The second is the route to and from the ground. And again, I reiterate that the royal couple themselves and other presidents and prime ministers who have traveled to Pakistan have received the same level of security and provisions that are set in place for routes that they have to travel. And thirdly was the ground. So whilst we'd agreed, or the NCOC had agreed that 25% of fans would be allowed in, there were 9 checkpoints to get into the ground. And those checkpoints ensured the complete safety of fans before they even arrived. And we'd even given fans notice to expect 2.5 to 3 hour delay of getting into the ground, so that everything would be checked out. So it's needless to say, everything was in place from our side. Those plans and those protocols and the rollout of that were given the clean bill of health by the security expert, who maintains even to this day that that is exactly what was put in place and was as secure as possible, that's provided for the presidents, etc. The other thing, the competent authorities here, normally what happens when threat levels increase, a lot of the Western countries here who have embassies and high commissions change their travel advisory. So considering there was a threat, a supposed threat in that report, the countries who were privy to that report have not changed their travel advisories since that report was produced. So that's the other thing just to mention here. I think for us, the credible information that was within that report should have been shared. I think that it sets a very, very dangerous precedent when countries are unilaterally making decisions that potentially could have long-term consequences for countries. I think we probably expected some dialogue and some discussion between the New Zealand intelligence and our intelligence, so that at that level they could discuss what type of threat had been perceived, so that we could try and mitigate that to ensure that the tour continued. Of course, the health and safety will always remain paramount, but we absolutely believe that had that information been shared, we may have been able to enlighten the New Zealand government a little bit on what the information was on the ground here and what we could potentially do to mitigate that. You know, the team had been practicing for 3 days, incident-free, and were very happy traveling to and fro from the Bindi Stadium. The feedback we were getting from players was that the security was excellent. The travel to and from the ground in terms of the security provision was excellent. So there was no complaints there. So everything was running along absolutely smoothly as far as we were concerned. You know, we continue to have foreign visitors from all over the world coming into Pakistan and continue to come into our beautiful country. They continue to visit, you know, go in the north of Pakistan into various places to visit some of the scenic and tourist sort of areas in the north. And so, you know, for us, disappointment, despondency, and also potential ramifications and repercussions long-term for us. We have worked very hard from a journey that we started 5 years ago to get to where we are now. And over the last 2.5, 3 years, we've seen Test cricket return, the full resumption in what is probably the busiest cricket season that I think we've ever had in Pakistan history, with New Zealand, England due to arrive, also with the West Indies, and then Australia also due to come for the longest period of 40 days that they've ever been in terms of touring Pakistan. We continue to have good relationships with the cricket board, but I think that what has to happen at an international level now is that we need to really look at this situation where countries can make a unilateral decision without any discussion with the host nations. This is going to cost us millions of dollars. This has severely affected us from a cricket credibility perspective and has set us back. England are meeting today, the ECB are meeting to make a decision on whether they will tour Pakistan or not. We know what the guidance is. We are aware of the fact that, from the security perspective, there is a clean bill of health from a security side of things. And we certainly hope that England will be touring, and that will be announced later on today. And we certainly believe they should be coming, and we hope that they will be coming based on what the competent authority here in Islamabad is saying, and also what the security expert is saying. The same security expert who provided the guidance for the ECB to return or to go to Bangladesh 6 weeks after the bomb blast went off there, which killed 12 people. So, there's a lot of trust put into this security expert who's understood, respected all around the world. And we certainly hope that when the board meet of the ECB, it's a positive conclusion and the team will come to Pakistan to play their short tour. We have been a strong and brave nation for a very long period of time. We've had to remain resilient in the face of much adversity. We've kept fighting back. We've kept having to brush ourselves off again as a nation and come back again. This is another blow for us, I must admit. It's been pretty gut-wrenching from a PCB perspective, from a fan's perspective. You all feel the pain that we felt as fans, and first and foremost, patriotic towards the country, fans of the nation, fans of the cricket team and cricket that comes here. It's been a difficult 48 hours for us, trying to dissect what has happened. I think the abrupt departure of the team has left many scars for us. And we just certainly hope that this is not going to have long-term consequences for us moving forward. I'm happy to take any questions that you have from the floor. Thank you.
Thank you, Wasim Saab, for the opening statement. We'll take Rizwan Ali, then we'll take Shahid Hashmi, then we'll take Amlan, followed by Wahid.
Assalamualaikum Wasim.
Walaikum salam.
वसीम, कुछ आप ऐसा बता सकते हैं कि वो जो सिक्योरिटी थ्रेट का जो भी उनका लेवल था या अलर्ट था, वो रैक के साथ उन्होंने शेयर किया था कि नहीं, कि रैक को भी नहीं पता कि वो सिक्योरिटी क्या है? क्योंकि रैक एक ऐसा आदमी है कि जिसकी कंपनी ने इस सारे इशू को, सिक्योरिटी के लेवल को चेक किया था पाकिस्तान से, और वो उन्होंने न्यूजीलैंड क्रिकेट बोर्ड के साथ भी शेयर किया था। तो क्या रैक को भी उन्होंने कॉन्फिडेंस में लिया या रैक को भी नहीं पता कि वो सिक्योरिटी लेवल क्या?
रिजवान ने बस शुक्रिया, बस उन्होंने ये शेयर किया कि ये सिक्योरिटी थ्रेट थी। तो ये फाइव आइज अलायंस जो है, उनके पास इंफॉर्मेशन थी, वो सिक्योरिटी इंफॉर्मेशन, वो रिपोर्ट उनके पास थी। वो रेज को बस यही बता रहे थे कि ये इंफॉर्मेशन है, लेकिन वो डिटेल इंफॉर्मेशन की उसको नहीं मिली, because it was deemed to be highly confidential information that could only be shared amongst those five countries. So bas Reg ko bas ye keh sakta tha ki usne baat ki thi with the security agencies of those different countries just to verify that content was in those reports that pertain to a potential threat, because they all received the same report, and he confirmed to Cricket New Zealand that that was the case.
Wasim, Assalamu alaikum.
Walaikum salam.
Shahid Hashmi. Of course, there is anger. Of course, there is pain of New Zealand abandoning the tour abruptly. There are some unwise, some emotional calls of boycotting the T20 World Cup match against New Zealand. Do you think this could be one option because we have signed the members' participation agreement, or do you fear that government will say that don't play the match against New Zealand?
Shahid Saab, dekhiye, obviously the PM to PM spoke as the last-ditch effort to try and create some dialogue. I think what we were wanting first and foremost was discussions. Sure, don't share the report with the Pakistan Cricket Board, but share it with our intelligence. Let's try and see whether we can mitigate any potential issues or challenges, because our security had not picked up anything. I think in terms of the second element or the first element of your question, there's no, right now, there's no issue about us playing New Zealand. Let's also remember that, that what New Zealand are saying is that it was guidelines or guidance provided to them from their government. We've had a good relationship with New Zealand in the past. Has it created potential tensions right now? I said absolutely. I think the way it was done, I think was disrespectful in many ways. But there certainly won't be any danger right now of us not fulfilling our obligations at the ICC World T20 tournament in the UAE.
Thank you.
Wahid Khan. Wahid, you are on mute.
आवाज नहीं आ रही भाई साहब, आवाज नहीं आ रही.
Okay, we'll move on. Danial and Ayush.
Sami, sahi ho gaya. Can you hear me now?
Wahid, we'll come to you later. Danial and then Ayush.
Okay, okay.
Assalamu alaikum, Wasim bhai. Wasim bhai, you said that obviously you've made plain your disappointment with the way New Zealand cricket did things. Like, I also detected a little bit in your tone a sort of helplessness about what can be done about it. So looking forward, immediately the first thing that jumps out is obviously the England tour. England accepted that they owed the PCB big time and the Indies Cricket Board for saving their season last year when Pakistan decided to tour. Do you think that can be leveraged? And does that mean that there is a realistic chance that the ECB honors that obligation to come to Pakistan? Because as you say, if Five Eyes ki taraf se intelligence hai, then obviously the UK is going to be in on that too. And then that same intelligence, if it worries New Zealand, it's probably going to worry England as well.
Look, our understanding, Daniel, is that from a security perspective, as I mentioned, the travel advisory is an indicator of threat levels. Most of the, not all of them, but most of them, the Western embassies and high commissions across the world use the travel advisory as an indicator of where the threat levels are. As it stands at the moment, the advisory has not changed from the British High Commission here, nor has it changed for the US, Canada, Australia, who are also part of that Five Eyes Alliance. You mentioned about the headlessness and, we feel that there isn't anything that we can do. I think there's a couple of things we have to establish here. One is there was no security breach, okay? And the tour was abandoned because of a perceived threat. The threat that was within that report was what we were saying should have been shared with our intelligence at that level so that we could try and mitigate it. Secondly, just as part of that is it sets a very dangerous precedent, Daniel. Okay, if countries can unilaterally just leave countries or move out of countries or abandon tours, then it does affect relationships. Where does it leave us as a sport? We are told that our security provision is the best in world sport, and that comes from the security experts. If the threats, potential threats or perceived threats cannot be discussed from a security high-level government to government level, then we have a real problem in cricket, because we have future tours coming up. And if this can just be done unilaterally, then I do believe it sets a very dangerous precedent. And this is something that needs to be discussed, I think, amongst the members to ensure that from a very basic courteous and respect level, that this isn't allowed to happen, because we still don't know what the repercussions of this will be. Time will tell for us.
Ayush?
Hi, Wasim. So I think you answered most of it in Daniel's question. Just to add to it, what do you dissect now that you spoke about dissecting this from the situation? What do you dissect, and what changes can you possibly make if the information is not shared and Pakistan security and intelligence doesn't find anything dangerous? Then from the shared report with the same person, security officer, what can possibly change for England? And okay, this is just the first question. Yeah, that's about it.
Yeah, Ayush, just on that, again, I go back to, there's two elements. There's the security provision that is put in place, and there is external threats that might come in. So going back again to the security that's put in place, the provisions are world-class across any sport across any world. It's presidential treatment. So, in terms of what the security expert can report on is the plans that are in place and the rollout of those plans. That's the only thing that individual can report on. The second element is any potential threats that might come that is picked up by intelligence, our intelligence, or external intelligence from other countries who have picked something up, etc. That is the level that we are a little bit disappointed at and despondent at, because let's not forget, and this is a big if there was a threat, then surely that threat is also open to civilians of Pakistan. So are we saying that the lives of those civilians within Pakistan are any less important? Or the fact that, the threat only applies to sports people? So, what we are saying is share that information. Let's work collectively as a cricket family. Let's find a solution. Let's see if we can mitigate. Because at the moment there's an inequality. And the inequality is, in some cases, is one rule for one, and then there's other rules for others. And that has to stop now, because this has hit us very, very hard. The consequences of this are going to be far-reaching, financially and cricket-wise. And the abruptness of how this happened, you can understand the anger, the emotions, the feelings. We worked very, very hard day and night to get Pakistan cricket to where we are now. And look, we are not for any minute saying that there are any untruths in the reports that were produced, but what we are saying is let's mitigate any potential threats together if there are any. And we weren't even given that opportunity, which is the disappointing part.
Sohail Imran, Waheed Khan, and then our friend Amlan.
जी अस्सलाम वालेकुम वसीम भाई, मुझे पूछना यह है कि हमने हर मुश्किल हालात में दूसरे बोर्ड्स की मदद की है, बल्कि हम लोगों ने कोऑपरेट किया है। हम इंग्लैंड दूसरे मुल्क हैं जहां हम इतने मुश्किल हालात में जाकर वहां पर खेलते हैं, हमें कोई उसका सिला नहीं मिलता। इसी तरह हम न्यूजीलैंड जाते हैं, हमारे खिलाड़ी 14 रोज कैद में गुजारते हैं, अच्छा खाने के लिए नहीं मिलता, और हम फिर भी उनके साथ इतना कोऑपरेट करते हैं, पूरी सीरीज खेलकर वापस आते हैं। तो क्या आप नहीं समझते कि जो वर्ल्ड कम्युनिटी है वो हमें उस तरह ट्रीट नहीं करती जिस तरह हम उन्हें ट्रीट करते हैं?
जी इमरान, सहल साहब, यही मैं बात कर रहा हूँ कि in terms of the inequality that exists, inequality है, and I don't care what people say. I've been around cricket a very, very long time now, and New Zealand में हम गए थे, बांग्लादेश वो जो मॉस्को अटैक भी हुआ था, तो बांग्लादेश टीम के साथ
आप सब लोग अपने माइक्स को म्यूट कर दें प्लीज।
ये आवाज कहाँ से आ रही है? हाँ, so Sahil Saab, we have done everything that's been asked for us. We've shown solidarity in cricket. Our players have gone through hardships. In 14 days quarantine in New Zealand, we went after the Bangladesh team got attacked in the masjid. So, we have done everything that we have possibly could do. I think what we have to look at now is that, we expect fair treatment the other way as well. It's easy to walk out of countries like Pakistan without any reason, without any dialogue, without any discussion, and that has to stop, because the inequality has to stop in world cricket. Unless we do that, we're not going to have an even playing field, both in treatment or in finances.
Wasim, this is Waheed Khan. Two questions basically. One, our friend Shahid Hashmi described this option of not playing New Zealand in the World Cup as emotional. But we have precedent of in the past of teams not playing against each other in the World Cup or ICC competitions based on political issues or security issues. And where does Pakistan cricket stand right now? Like you said, you all are feeling helpless in the sense that you don't know what happened, what led to this New Zealand team leaving abruptly, and you are admitting that there's inequality in world cricket. So what steps can Pakistan PCB take to ensure that in future teams which tour Pakistan cannot take such unilateral decisions? And second part of my question is that are we in any position at the ICC level to demand any sort of compensation from the New Zealand cricket?
Just wait up, just starting with your end question. No, not directly from the ICC, because it's a bilateral series. So the ICC view would be very, very clear that this is a bilateral series between both countries. Normally when there are disputes or issues, the ICC will come in and try and facilitate and find an amicable solution to that. So that's the first thing. We will, Ramiz Raja, Saab, myself, the chairman and myself will be taking this up at the ICC level, but also with Cricket New Zealand. And it is something that we will be pushing to have a discussion more broadly over this topic when we sit at the ICC table. Because as I say, is that, you know, the issue we have at the moment is that people can unilaterally make that decision without any consequences for themselves. There is consequences for the others who are the recipients of that. And in this case, it was us. So is it fair that that can happen? Yes, we understand that there was guidance provided by the New Zealand government, but were we not owed, you know, the respect to at least to have some dialogue to see whether we share that information security to security, to see whether we can mitigate the potential threats that they were saying with the outlining report. We as the PCB didn't need to know what the threats were. That could have been done at security to security level. And you would hope that collaboration would happen at international level. We're all in it for the same thing. We all want to see a peaceful world. We all want to see a harmonious world. We all want to see a safe world. And if we're at that level, we are not able to share intelligence outside of a circle, which clearly is there, then it's going to make it very hard for other countries to be able to deal with and mitigate any potential threats there might be. So I think that, you know, we won't be, as it stands now, I don't think the answer is not taking part or playing against New Zealand in the World Cup. I think we have a duty to the fans. We have a duty still to get out there and play. Our job should be to go out and win that match. You know, this is an ICC World Cup, and our job is to go out and do that. And we'll continue to have dialogue and discussions offline. Myself and the chairman will continue to do that with the competent authorities.
Amlan, Mohi Shah, and then Khalid H. Khan.
Mr. Khan, my question is, do you think that this one step by New Zealand cricket, it can sort of potentially undo all the hard work that PCB has done over the last 5-6 years to bring international cricket back in Pakistan?
Look, I think that you can see from the reaction from around the world, you know, the people's dismay and disappointment, not just from Pakistanis, but I think we've seen from commentators, we've seen cricketers from all over the world. I think the element of this, Amlan, is the abruptness of the abandonment and moving out of the country as quickly as they did. I think what is important for us is to just demystify any of the false understandings or information that might be out there. This was not a security breach. Let's make that absolutely clear. The security that the PCB, in conjunction with the government, put on for international teams that come here is exactly the same for presidents, prime ministers, et cetera, et cetera. So, you know, we fully back that process. It's been successfully in place for a very, very long time. What we have here was a threat that was reported through a different agency, picked up and not shared. My job and the job of, I think, the media is to make sure that we report correctly on this and the information is correctly disseminated in terms of the process that took place, why we're disappointed, and also the fact that what the consequences might be for us moving forward of this type of decision. So I think the purpose of this today was to kind of provide the background, provide the reasons why we have come out strongly as we have, and also what the consequences are. So hopefully what this forum has been about today has been outlining all of that so that we can get our point across from a factual point of view.
Wasim, this is Moisha. Definitely such a pullout resulted in cricketing loss, financial loss. But what about the setback fans back home in Pakistan? They have been waiting for, for months and weeks to see New Zealand and Pakistan in action in one-day internationals and then T20 internationals. So what message would you give to defense?
Look, you defend it. I mean, it is out of our control, Moisab. I mean, it's something that, we share the agony, we share the disappointment. We were looking forward. We successfully hosted South Africa in February, and we were ready for the most busiest time for us in terms of Pakistan cricketing history, with New Zealand, England, West Indies, the PSL in January, February time, and then Australia to come into play 3 tests, 3 ODIs, 2 T20s. That's an incredible summer of cricket for us coming ahead. So the financial losses, we're aware of, and we know we're counting and we're understanding what those losses are at the moment. But yeah, the credibility for us is the big thing, because we have done a huge amount of work in building our credibility back up again in world cricket. And I guess I will say that it's been the rug pulled from under our feet, as quick as that. Within 10 hours, 8 hours, a decision was made to abandon the tour, to leave the country, and the New Zealand team are now en route back to New Zealand. And that's fundamentally wrong in my view, particularly when the information wasn't being shared. And I keep going back to this. Share the information with our security agencies. Let them assess with you. Let them work with you to see how real those threats are. Let's mitigate them together. Because the consequences to a country like Pakistan and New Zealand are aware how hard we've worked. A lot of work has been done behind the scenes to work with New Zealand to bring them to Pakistan. And at a drop of a hat, to just walk away and just leave us to pick up the pieces like this, I'm sorry, but my view is that dialogue should have taken place. We may have reached the same conclusion. It may have been that the New Zealand cricket may have said, our government are adamant they must return, in which case there isn't a great deal we do. But let's try and work it out together. Sit around the table for a few hours. Let's understand what those risks are. Let's mitigate them together so that the tour can continue. Months and months of work has gone into this, and I think that's the disappointment. And within 6-7 hours, it just gone from under us. With everything running so well, they'd been in the country 3 or 4 days, 5 days, everything was going smoothly. And so, I think this is what we're trying to come to terms with.
Wasim, my question to you is, as you say that...
Khalid, speak louder.
As you say, the information was not shared. So, can you hear me?
Yes.
Hello?
Yeah.
Information was not shared between the intelligence agencies of both countries. Do you think we cannot rule out that it could be some kind of hoax that they would have done to undermine Pakistan cricket or Pakistan as a country? And my second question is, as some of my friends said that Pakistan should not be playing New Zealand in the World T20 Cup. Is there a possibility that Pakistan should play them, but under protest by sporting black armbands?
Look, firstly, in terms of your question about the hoax, look, let's not speculate. I think that all we can go with is what we were told, and obviously the sequence of events, which is what I want to discuss and which I have been discussing with you today. Secondly, in terms of the black armbands, I think we just need to be very careful from an ICC perspective. It's not the route we want to take, showing any sort of political posturing or gesturing or any sort of visible protest. I think all we can do is, what we can control is remain positive, remain professional, Khalid Saab, from our side. I think we have to keep our head up high, and we have to keep doing the right things as a nation. As I said, we've tried to do that. We're convincing countries to come back, not because they're doing us a favor, but because we've convinced them that it's safe to return to Pakistan to come and play. So our security that we continue to offer, is as safe as any that you will get across any sport in the world, or any presidential visits across the world, or any prime minister's visits. So we will continue to do that. But certainly we won't be making any political gesturing or posturing at an ICC World Cup.
Rashid Shakur, Akil Ahmed, and then Zulfikar Beg.
अस्सलाम वालेकुम वसीम साहब।
Islam.
वसीम साहब, आपने जिस तरह कहा कि हम इस तरह प्रोटेस्ट भी नहीं कर सकते और सारी चीज़ें आप बता रहे हैं, तो प्रेशर बिल्डअप इंटरनेशनल क्रिकेट कम्युनिटी स्पेशली न्यूजीलैंड और इस तरह की जो बड़ी क्रिकेट जो नेशंस हैं उन पर प्रेशर बिल्डअप करने का फिर आपके ख्याल में सबसे मौसर या स्ट्रॉन्ग तरीका कौन सा है? क्योंकि 2009 का एक इंसिडेंट होता है, 12 साल हमें लग गए दुनिया को यकीन दिलाने के लिए कि वी आर सेफ कंट्री। हम जिम्बाब्वे कीनिया नहीं है, हम पाकिस्तान क्रिकेट बोर्ड है, पाकिस्तान क्रिकेट टीम है जो किसी भी टूर्नामेंट में जाती है वो सबसे एक्साइटिंग टीम होती है, उसके बगैर कोई इंटरनेशनल इवेंट का तस्वुर नहीं है। तो हमें तो इन्होंने एक अरसे तक तनहा कर दिया, लेकिन अब हम क्या फिर दोबारा उसी उसमें गुम हो जाएंगे कि हमें दुनिया को दोबारा यकीन दिलाने के लिए 10-20 साल लग जाएंगे कि हम सेफ कंट्री हैं, आओ हमारे साथ खेलो? क्योंकि वो तो एक यकतरफा फैसला कर रहे हैं, लेकिन हम हर चीज को कहते हैं कि इमोशनल नहीं होना चाहिए। तो इस सिलसिले में फिर प्रेशर बिल्डअप करने का नॉन इमोशनल तरीका आपके ख्याल में क्या होना चाहिए सर? थैंक यू।
There's two avenues for us. पहली एवेन्यू है, हमने डायरेक्टली हमने न्यूजीलैंड क्रिकेट को खत भी लिखा। So that's something privately that we will take up directly with New Zealand Cricket, which the chairman has sent a letter to their chairman. Secondly, this will be picked up with the ICC. So what is the biggest issue that we have now? The biggest issue is to stop anything like this being allowed to happen unilaterally. What we can do, that's something for the ICC and for us to have a discussion. Because once the intelligence forces or securities agencies are involved, the argument might be that, look, that then gets escalated up to government level. It's then out of our hands as a cricket board. I think what we have to try and work out is when reports are generated and are shared with cricket boards, that there are elements or the boards are allowed to sit down with the other correspondent sort of cricket board and sit with them and actually discuss what the issues are within that report and work collectively to sort them out. If we didn't go to New Zealand, okay, after the Bangladesh attack and said, sorry, we're not going, what would have been the implications for Cricket New Zealand, right? We could argue that agents failed and nobody picked up. And so, the things that happen in other countries, the consequences of us not going to England last year, what would have been the consequences financially of that? So, this is when I talk about inequality and making sure that everybody is on an equal field, not based on your financial clout, but based on the fact that there's an equal respect across all the members of the ICC. So we all have an equal, consistent policy, a procedure that is followed when incidents like this occur again, and make sure that something like this can't happen again. Because if it happens again, then it's going to continue to put those cricket boards in perilous positions, and we find ourselves in that position today.
Thank you, gents. We are a little bit short on time, तो जरा सवाल भी छोटे रख लें, please. Akil and then Zulfikar Beg. Okay, Akil nahi hai, Zulfikar.
It's a shameful by the New Zealand government and the team. वसीम, आप क्या समझते हैं, पाकिस्तान की आवाम ने, पाकिस्तान क्रिकेट बोर्ड ने बहुत सारी कुर्बानियां दी हैं इंटरनेशनल क्रिकेट की पाकिस्तान में वापसी के लिए। क्या ऐसा सख्त फैसला किया जाएगा न्यूजीलैंड के अगेंस्ट कि उनको बताया जाए कि हमारा मुल्क महफूज मुल्क है इंटरनेशनल क्रिकेट के लिए? क्या कहना चाहेंगे?
देखिए जुल्फिकार साहब, ये तो जैसे मैंने पहले भी कहा कि हमने खत भी लिखा न्यूजीलैंड को, और आईसीसी से भी हम ये बात भी करेंगे उनके साथ. We're going to have a full dialogue and discussions with them. I think it's important that it's not targeted towards New Zealand. It's targeted towards the lack of processes there are in place to actually deal with these types of situations, and the lack of respect that we feel as a proud nation of 230 million people that who love their cricket, who've waited, sacrificed a lot over the last 12 years to get cricket back. And it can be pulled from under our feet within a space of 8 or 9 hours, without any reason, without any discussion, debate, sharing of information. That's the issue that we have. If that information had been shared and a mutual agreement had come to pass with our security agencies and New Zealand's, that there was a credible threat, and we ascertained that and it couldn't be mitigated, then I think that is the stage at which you mutually agree, but you've explored it and you've exhausted. And because nothing comes ahead of players' welfare and safety. Please, throughout all of this, all I say is that I am not for 1 minute saying that we compromise the health, the safety, and the well-being of players. That's not what I'm saying. I am disappointed, and we are as a cricket board, with the unilateral process or the unilateral decision that has been made, and the fact that no information was shared at the highest level to allow us to deal with this situation and exhaust every possible opportunity before the final decision was made for New Zealand to go home.
Mohammad Yusuf, Gokul, and then Anas Saeed.
वसीम, इस सारे इंसिडेंट के बाद क्या आपकी क्रिकेट ऑस्ट्रेलिया से बात हुई, क्योंकि हमने जनवरी फरवरी में उनका भी मेजबानी करनी है?
नहीं, अभी नहीं यूसुफ साहब, अभी तो ECB के साथ हम बात कर रहे हैं, वो तो पहले प्रायोरिटी वो है, तो उसके बाद फिर हम ऑस्ट्रेलिया के साथ हम डायलॉग भी शुरू करेंगे। उसके पहले भी वेस्ट इंडीज़ की टीम भी आ रही है, तो उनसे भी बात करना पड़ेगा, उनको भी सिक्योरिटी प्लान्स भी दिखाने पड़ेंगे, उनको रीअश्योरेंस भी देने पड़ेंगे। Or we're very lucky in the game in the fact that we have a highly credible security expert in Reg Dickerson, who works for ESI. They are world-renowned, they are respected, and they are the security agency that many cricket boards use and listen to and take on board in terms of their reports, and are generally confident to go ahead with whatever information they provide. They will never put anybody at risk. They will always provide an honest assessment. Their honest assessment right now is Pakistan, as far as they are concerned, from plans and rollouts of the security plans, is as good as anywhere in the world at the moment.
Wasim, hi. I just wanted to ask you, has there been any communication from the New Zealand board ever since the players have left Pakistan?
No, no official correspondence. From Cricket New Zealand. Obviously there was a press conference today, but up until that point, apart from my last conversation with the CEO, David White, early afternoon on the 17th, which was the day the tour was abandoned, no, we haven't received anything in writing from Cricket New Zealand, but we have written to Cricket New Zealand.
Thanks, Wasim.
अच्छा वसीम भाई, मेरा सवाल ये है कि साबिक चेयरमैन PCB एहसान मानी ने कहा था कि हम अपनी क्रिकेट होम सीरीज जो है वो पाकिस्तान में खेलेंगे। अगर खुदा ना खास्ता इंग्लैंड नहीं आती है तो हमारा चांस यही होगा कि हम इसमें कोई चेंज भी ला सकते हैं?
देखिए अनस, अच्छा सवाल है आपका। I think right as it stands at the moment, we have no plans to go abroad to play our cricket. It's taken us a long time to return. We are adamant that we remain safe, but of course we've also always got to have contingency and backups. But as it stands right now, there is certainly no conversation about us playing our cricket abroad in the near future.
Okay, we had the first round of questions. Mera nahi khayal ke koi reh gaya hai, but I've been requested by Daniel and Wahid for one question each, and then we'll wrap up the session.
Wasim bhai, one follow-up. Aapne kaha tha David White obviously gave a press conference today, said they would be in discussions with Pakistan. Though I just wanted to ask specifically, what have you written to New Zealand cricket? You said you'd written to them. And is there anything that you can share about whether there's optimism or pessimism when it comes to the England tour? Because aapne kaha they'll make a decision soon. But is there anything that you can tell us about that at this stage?
Firstly, I can't disclose any contents of what we've written to Cricket New Zealand. That's between us and Cricket New Zealand. Secondly, in terms of what is in place, ultimately the ECB board will make a decision. There's two elements that I guess every board looks at. One is the advisory that is within that particular country they're going to. And secondly, it's around the security provision that is put in place directly for the team. So as I mentioned, from both of those angles, we have been told that there's a clean bill of health and there's confidence on both of those sides. But ultimately, look, the decision is the ECB boards, and we'll have to wait and see. They are meeting very soon, and we'll know very, very soon.
Thank you.
Wasim, this is Wasim Khan. Wasim, I wanted to ask one thing was that England, like you said, England is supposed to take a decision today on whether they tour Pakistan or not. And Australia is obviously coming early next year. But if we assume, let's say that England also refuses to come to Pakistan, there have been some suggestions by some former players that the PCB should try to contact some nations like Bangladesh or Sri Lanka who are free right now and try to get them to play a few matches in Pakistan to just send across a message, that international cricket can still continue in Pakistan despite what happened, what the New Zealand team has done. Anything on that?
Yeah, look, we have reached out to both Sri Lanka and Bangladesh. Unfortunately, because it's very short notice, there was a strong willingness to come and play, but unfortunately, logistically, it's difficult for them. They have plans. Players are dispersed in Bangladesh in terms of different places. I think the Sri Lanka squad are going to Oman very soon. So I think that from a short sort of time frame point of view, it's not been possible to put anything in place in this short period of time for us. But it has been explored by our chairman, and it's something that has been looked at in the last 24 hours.
Thank you.
I hope Wasim Saab has answered all the questions and there is nothing pending. Gentlemen, thank you very, very much indeed for your time. It's much appreciated. Thank you, Wasim Saab, for your time. Gentlemen, have a great evening, whatever is left, and we'll stay in touch. Thank you very, very much indeed.
Oh, shukriya ji. Thank you.